To say Killers of the Flower Moon was my most anticipated film of the year would be an understatement. I had so much anticipation for this film. Being a new Martin Scorsese film starring Leonardo DiCaprio, I was set, and a period piece nonetheless, and a western nonetheless. I was so excited for this film. And there's been some mixed reactions to this film. I would say it's somewhat polarizing, but all in all, I really love this film, and I am recommending it. Just to get that out of the way, I completely fell in love with the performances, the direction, the cinematography. Everything about this film is so magnetic and fantastic. I just loved every minute of it. Speaking of that, let's get this nasty little thing out of the way, which is the runtime, which people seem to be complaining about, and it seems like the most central topic of discussion when it comes to this film. And honestly, the runtime wasn't a problem for me. I felt like everything that was happening on screen was flying by for me. I didn't even notice that it was 3.5 hours, and that's something when you're going to a Scorsese film, it's going to be long. It's going to be feeling like a tedious chore to sit through, but this was none of that. This was just overall fantastic. I loved what was happening. I loved the pacing of everything that the characters were going through. I just loved every minute of it, and the runtime was not a problem for me. But what is the film about, you might ask? Well, it's about oil, and it's discovered in the 1920s in Oklahoma under the Osage Nation land, and the Osage people are murdered one by one until the FBI steps in to unravel the case and unravel the mystery. And that is the central focus of the film, and one that is very intriguing and very tragic. The things that these people go through is just quite despicable and quite just saddening all around, which makes it a very compelling narrative for the film. And as I said, my first impressions of the film, I just really loved every minute of it. I loved the pacing. I loved everything. The cinematography is magnetic. The sound design is just perfect. Everything about this was just totally wonderful, and if you come to love Scorsese, I think you're going to love this film, especially if you love period piece Scorsese. I think that's my favorite type of Scorsese. You know, you got gangster Scorsese, you got biopic Scorsese, and you got period piece Scorsese. I think this kind of wraps up everything all into one. It's the amalgamation of everything he's made up to this point. And I couldn't think of a better way to really, not to say make a comeback, but, you know, come out of the shadows for another great cinematic experience. And that was Killers of the Flower Moon for me. And as I said, Scorsese is on top of his game. He has everything figured out as a filmmaker, and he's delivered, quite honestly, almost a masterpiece. You know, there are a few things that I might have criticism about, which I'll get into. But all in all, you know, this is, I wouldn't even say a swan song, because I hope he has other films up his sleeve. I know he's talked about his mortality a lot in recent interviews, and that's a sad thing, because I really hope he has some more films in him, and in his cards, in his play of hands. And if this was a game of poker, I hope he has a lot of great hands to show us. The performances are just amazing. Leonardo DiCaprio was simply great. It's what you come to expect of him, and yes, he only has a few tools in his acting toolbox and uses them great here. He plays somewhat of a despicable character, a morally gray character who's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. For the love of his wife, played by Gladstone, who's just magnificent, and his uncle, played by Robert DeNiro, who's just so despicable and so riddled with greed and corruption. It was really interesting to see these two juggernauts of Scorsese's past films really play despicable characters. I really appreciate that. It's not Leo playing the good guy. He's playing a morally complex guy, and I really enjoyed that. And it would be understatement to say Lily Gladstone is just amazing in this film. I'd never seen any of her work before, but I am truly now a fan of her work. She is just quite amazing, and the rest of the cast is great. Jesse Plemons plays a great character with the limited screen time he has. Same with Brendan Fraser, who has very limited screen time, but when he's on screen, when he delivers hard, and it is just so great. I loved it. But that leads me to my criticisms of the film, and I don't have too many. Obviously, I would have liked more of Lily Gladstone. I would have liked more perspective on her character, more of a perception on her character. The film takes on different perspectives of voiceover, which I don't ever really have a problem with. I don't mind a good narration if it's delivered well. And there's some narration with her still. It felt like there could have been more. Of course, you know, having a runtime of 3.5 hours is already maybe pushing it for some people. Could have had more of Lily Gladstone in her narration. Events that happen to her character, it just seems like like tragedy after tragedy upon tragedies. I really feel that there's probably a lot on the cutting room floor with her that I would love to see on a Blu-ray or a 4K Blu-ray, so hopefully that comes about. And this probably leads me to my main criticism of the film was the soundtrack. I really felt the soundtrack was not as menacing as it could have been. It's done by the late Robbie Robertson, and there's some moments where it works, but other moments where it didn't work. I just wasn't really feeling it that much. If I have a criticism, it would be with the soundtrack. Nothing can be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect film, but this comes pretty damn close. And as I said, it's very not familiar, but treading similar waters. You know, you have the gangster Scorsese, you have period piece Scorsese, and you have some of biopic, because this is based on a true story, the Osage Nation and the investigation and creation of the FBI, which was very interesting to know. I definitely want to get my hands on the book to get more into it, because there's probably a lot of information they couldn't probably fit into this film, but they focus on the characters, which is the most important part. If I was going to compare it to another Scorsese film, I would compare it to Goodfellas. With the different narrations going on, with the gangster factor, with the robberies, with the violence and the murders. I really feel like this has most in common with Goodfellas, which isn't a bad thing, because Goodfellas happens to be my favorite Scorsese film, and this did not disappoint either. I want to put it above Goodfellas. I wouldn't even put it maybe above something like The Aviator or Shutter Island, which are other Scorsese films I love deeply. But it's kind of, I want to say, mid-tier. Not that the film is mid at all. I really enjoyed myself. I can't wait to watch it again. It was just truly mesmerizing, and I really appreciate the epilogue they had. Instead of using post-text to describe the endings of these characters, they have a very interesting epilogue, which I won't spoil it here, but I really enjoyed it. I really feel like it was a good play on Scorsese's part, and everything about the film was just magical, despite a few little things here and there. I really didn't feel the runtime. Like I said, everything was just magnificent and immaculate. So that's why I want to give Killers of the Flower Moon 4 stars. And that's my review for Killers of the Flower Moon, directed by Martin Scorsese and starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, and Lily Gladstone. But what did you think of the film? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you really feel the runtime? Or was that not a non-factor for you? I really feel like people should go into this blind as possible, to not let the runtime discourage them. And of course, there have been times where long runtimes have discouraged me from seeing the film. I still have not seen The Irishman because of that, but I really feel that this is an important film to see at least once, and seeing it in the theater I think is very, very important, especially to Scorsese. So we should honor his wishes and all see it in the theater, if not multiple times. But as always, thank you for tuning into this video. Please remember to like and subscribe if you'd be so kind. My name is George Ray. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, peace out.